What's up? This is Richie from the Where We Wild YouTube channel, and today I got a Daiwa Tatula SVTW 103 HSL. It is the 7-gear ratio. This reel is the 2017 version. I just picked it up off of eBay, and it looks to be in pretty darn good condition. I'm just gonna tear it all apart, tune it up, get it running nice and smooth, so if you're at home trying to take gears apart, you can follow along and hopefully it'll help you out, man. Let's get into it. All right, the Daiwa Tatula SVTW. Man, I got to fish with one of these reels a couple weeks ago, and I was really impressed with it. So I picked one up for myself. Just got delivered today, and we're gonna see what kind of condition it's in. Pretty stoked up. Feels pretty smooth. There's a little bit of some rattling going on. I don't know if that's coming from the T-wing up here or what, but yeah, we're gonna see. So let's get into this, man. Let's check this thing out. Hopefully there's not a lot of cleanup work I'm gonna need to do with it. From the description on eBay, this dude said that he put new drag washers in, I believe, so, you know, I guess he knew how to take this thing apart. So it's not gonna be completely untouched and stock inside. So we're gonna start out with a flathead screwdriver here, get this little first screw off, just getting a nice tight lock up on that. Pull that off. And we gotta get this little red cover off. That's annoying. Can I use a chatterbait? Little chatterbait blade to get this thing off? Yes, he has a chatterbait just sitting on his desk. All right, got that off. I think we got a 10mm wrench here, and since this is a left-handed reel, I believe it's going to be loosened to the right, which is clockwise, and it is. Keeping pressure on this star drag here because there's definitely going to be a spring involved. All right, handle's off. There's a little washer on the back of the handle we'll get to in a minute. Lift up on this star drag here. A lot of dirty grease going on in there. Let me just place this down for a second here. And we're just going to put this stuff in the order of which I found it. Now, a little bit of a washer on the back of this. I'm just gonna, oh, you know what? Let me grab a paper towel. Just want to give this a little bit of a wipe off here. A little bit of gunk. I'm gonna wipe this handle off. And I'm just gonna place everything in the order of which I found it. Just kind of work my way down the mat here. So we have these like this. There's a little washer on that. And we had the star drag. There's a little bit of nonsense in there. Scoop some of that out. Takes me too long, I will jump cut for you. But I just wanted to clean some of this nonsense up. All right. Okay. Place that down there. All right, next up we got our spring here. Lift up on that. Then we got a little bit of a nut. I'm just gonna hold the spool in place to give me a little leverage, and I'm gonna just, I don't remember, it's coming off, yeah, clockwise as well. To the right. And then it looks like underneath that, we're gonna have a little bit of a washer. It just basically sat right on the bottom of this. There's a more shiny silver side and a more dull color side, and the dull color side was laying on the nut. So we're just going to put that right there. Then underneath that, I believe we're going to have our spring tension washers that usually sit back to back, like back to back parentheses. There's one. There's the other. Now these things always sit back to back, like I said, and that's what gives them the little spring action. See how they don't match up? You want them to have that little space in between there. So they don't quite match up like that. Gives you that little spring. Back to back. All right, now we got this drag clicker here. For some reason, this thing doesn't want to come up and off. A little bit of crap on there. Here it is. Gotta be careful, man. Thing almost went launching off on me. Just give that a little wipe off. Then you got one more washer underneath that, and that is just a little thin, very light looking washer. Just gonna wipe it off and try not to bend it or lose it. All right, so that's the whole handle assembly. All right, so we've got a bearing in there. Guess we'll get to that in a little bit. Next up, let's take this spool off here, and we're just gonna kind of dig our finger into that little screw there. If it was too tight, I could have used a flathead on it, but it was loose enough to where I could just use my finger to put a little pressure. I'm gonna unscrew that until that pops out like that, and then we can turn our door clockwise to the right and get that off. Pull the spool out. Let's get a little look at the spool here. No bearing on it, so we don't really have to do too much to that, but we do have a bearing on the inside of this little side plate door here. So to get at this thing, we got to pop this little clip out, that little spring clip you'll see in there, and there's a brake down at the bottom of it, and we're just going to take a little bit of a flathead screwdriver or tweezers just to pop that thing out of there, and then we can get a look at this bearing. So always keep your thumb over it before you start messing with it, because it will go flying on you. You just want to take your screwdriver and get underneath it and just run it right into your thumb so that thing does not go flying. Then we're going to take our little bearing remover. I'll link everything in the video description, by the way, as always. The mat, the tools, the oil, grease. You'll be able to find every last little thing in the video description. So if you need to pick something up for yourself, it'll all be right there for you. Let me just get under this bearing. I'm gonna pull it out and just get a little look at it. Give it a little wipe off. We're going to throw it on our tester here. See what we're dealing with. All right, not so bad. Nice and quiet. Definitely free spinning, so that's good. Tiny little wipe off here with the Q-tip. And then we're just going to drop a little Lucas reel oil I like to use on my bearings, linked in the video description. And we're just going to put a little drop. Work that in, flip her around. One more little drop on that. Let that soak in. I'm just gonna take a little Q-tip here and just give a tiny little wipe to the inside here. Just make sure there's nothing going on there. Then we can put our bearing, ooh, get stuck on the magnets. Pop our bearing right back in, make sure it's sitting all flush in there. And then we can take our little spring clip and put that back in. Now you might need a tool for this. Usually I can get away with just my fingernail, just like that. But just take your screwdriver or whatever and make sure all those sides are pressed down into place. You'll hear like a little snap. You just want to keep that nice and secure. All right, so that bearing's done. Moving on. Let's see, I believe this tension knob here does not give you access to that bearing, but I'm going to unscrew it anyway, counterclockwise to the left. Yeah. So you could drop maybe a little oil in that direction there, like right through that black and hit the lip of it, but you got a better shot of it later on in the reel once we get this door off. So just wiping any crap off this. All right, so let's get this side plate off here. It looks like there's 3 screws on the outside, 1, 2, 3. And I'm just gonna take these off one by one and then put them in the order of which I found them. So I can remember which is which, just in case one is longer or shorter than the other. But just wanna try to get a good lock up. This bit might be a little small. I don't want it sliding around on me too much. Let's see if this works. Yeah, that'll work. And now I'm looking at it this way. So I'm just gonna place these screws up on the grid up here on the mat so I can tell exactly where they went. I'm just keeping pressure on the screwdriver so it doesn't slide off on me, and just go real slow, man. There's no rush. Don't want to scratch your reel up, you know what I'm saying? Especially even if you're working on someone else's reel. Last time I was working on one of these, it wasn't my reel. Now this one is mine, so I can be a little more rough. All right, this one looks a little longer here on that side. All right, what do we got? All right, interesting. Dang. All right, let's start with this side plate here real fast, shall we? Get a look at that. Now it looks like we got our roller clutch inner tube right here. We're gonna pull that out. Give that a little bit of a wipe. There is no washer on it. I believe it's that washer right there. And it just kind of sits on the other side on top of that bearing to give it its spacing. But some of these reels, you'll find a washer right there. Usually Shimano. You don't have to add any grease or oil to your one-way bearing. It's friction driven. Wipe that crap off there. And then here's where you got your shot at this bearing here. Now I remember the last time I worked on one of these, I was not a fan of the little setup that they have in here. It's a totally different spring clip than the one that you see there. And I didn't want to mess with that because I couldn't figure out if I was going to break that thing. But now since this is my reel, maybe I will try to get that bearing out. Let's see. Yeah, that's hard, man. I don't like that setup. It's just that tiny little piece right here. You're gonna have to, oh, all right, there you go. That came out way easier. It's because it's been taken out before. You can see that's bent. But the last one I worked on has never been taken out, so it never had that bend to it. But it's gonna be easy to get at this bearing now. So let's pull that out. Get a look at it. Just throw it on the old tester, see what's what. Smooth. Not so bad. Just gonna drop a little oil on it. Little baby, man. A little bit on the other side, just because it was pretty dry. All right. Let me throw that bad boy back in. Maybe I will give a slight little wipe out. Make sure there's no gunk. And then make sure there's no Q-tip hair fibers in there. And throw our little bearing back in. Make sure it snaps into place like that. And now we got to figure out how to get this little piece back in there. Oh, that's not so bad. I sat in there pretty well. All right. Not so bad. All right, side plate taken care of. That bearing's all good. Everything's wiped out, looking good. Let's move on to the meat and potatoes of this issue here, shall we? Put that off to the side. What do we got here? Got our two little yoke springs. We're gonna throw up on our mat here. And we got our main gear. We're gonna try to slide up and off. It's a little stuck there. Let's maybe slide underneath it. Oof, that was a little violent. All right, so this guy wasn't lying. He did put carbon fiber drag washers on there. Interesting. So let's take this top piece off here. What do we got? It's the aluminum feeling piece here. Put that face down. And we got a drag washer that sat right next to it. Now, he put these drag washers in, but he didn't grease them up. He didn't grease them up. They are bone dry, boy. Bone dry. I don't like that. It's not how I play this game. We're gonna hook those up. Let me just get a good little look at this this gear real fast. I just wanna maybe hit it with a little bit of a toothbrush real fast. Clean out any old gunk, but it was pretty bone dry, man. I'm not really seeing much at all. Yeah, pretty dry. Pretty dry. Underneath that, you got your ratchet and another drag washer. Slide up on that bad boy. So we're just gonna hook up these bone-dried carbon fiber drag washers with a little bit of our Cow's Universal Reel and Star Drag grease. Now this will help add to the life of the washer. When they're bone dry like the way this guy had them, you know, technically you do get your max drag, but they're gonna burn up on you fairly quickly if you fish the reel a lot. So we're just gonna put a tiny little thin layer of this drag grease on there. You know what? I should have wiped it off beforehand, because a lot of that carbon fiber is coming off. And just look at that. So we're just gonna give it a wipe. There's a lot of stuff coming off it, boy. A lot of stuff. Wipe the other one off as well. Dang. All right, let's put a little bit of this stuff on. And you don't want it caked on where it's like really, really sloppy and nuts. You just want a little shiny coating of it. If you get too much, you can wipe it off. You just want a nice little shine to it. See, it's a little beat up already. And that's probably because there was no drag grease on it. Nice little thin coating. That's all you're looking for. It almost feels, I don't know if it actually is doing it, but it almost feels like it soaks it like a sponge would, but it could just be my imagination. All right, that smells horrible, for the record. Not the grease, but the that carbon fiber. Sheesh. All right, we're gonna place this off to the side for now. And we're gonna move on. Got our pinion gear here and our yoke. We're just gonna pull straight up and off. I'm gonna need another paper towel. You always end up using more paper towels and Q-tips and toothpicks and all that stuff when you get a reel that's been used for a while, you know. Just the way it goes. I'm just wiping the old grease off this thing here. And our pinion gear. Got a little bit of a wipe. Just want to give it a little wipe, and a little inspection. Just make sure nothing's cracked on it. All the teeth look good. And they do. Might blow a little air straight through it. Sometimes you get a little gunk in there. All right, now looks like there's a lot of nonsense in here. Might have to take a couple minutes with a Q-tip or a toothpick and get all that stuff out, and I will jump cut if that is the case. See all that crap? I don't need that in my reel. Now, underneath here, you got your main bearing. I really don't want to have to take that out because those two little screws are a real pain in the butt. But let's see what this thing sounds like. All right, that bearing seems to be spinning pretty good. See, now when you go with the tester here, you can hear it scratching the frame a little. So that's not the sound of the bearing. It's just hitting that frame. But if that wasn't spinning, I would take it out, but it is. So we're just gonna drop a little oil right off to the side here, right on the seam of it. Can do it from either side of the reel. You're just hearing the frame there. So it's confusing because you're like, uh-oh, does that bearing sound like crap? But it's just the tool hitting the frame. Now underneath here, you got two more screws that you got to line this gear up perfect with to see. Now, the last time I worked on this reel, and I believe these reels are notorious for this, those screws are very hard to come out. But we are going to see. This feels like it's spinning really, really well. So I don't even know if I'm gonna mess with these two little screws, because the way they have them set up, that's annoying, man. You gotta dig in there with a little Phillips head, and you got to keep this screw, you got to keep this gear perfectly centered so you can get at that. And that is annoying, but we're going to see how loose they are. Yeah, see, I'm already putting, yeah, that's very, very tight. These reels are notorious for that, man. These screws are extremely tight. So unless this thing ain't spinning, maybe don't even mess with that, man. But what I will do is I will sneak this oil needle right down in there and get a little bit of oil to sink down into that area. You can even hit it from that side as well. And gravity will just sink that right in. But if that felt really, really rough, I'd really push it, and I'd try to like really push those screws out of there. But just so you know, if you do need to replace those bearings, it's those two screws there, here and here, very tiny. This piece comes up, this little black piece with the little poles here, pulls up, and then you can scoop your bearing right out. That's your main bearing. This one, you gotta line this up perfect so you can reveal those two screws there, and then you're really gonna have to bust these out, man, and they're in there tight. And then underneath that is that bearing. So, you know, up to you. But as long as everything feels good and is free spinning, I think you're good to leave that alone. Now, we are gonna take off this front piece here. There's a screw on this side and a screw on this side. And we're gonna take that off so we can get to this pawl cap and the worm gear that is being blocked by this. So let's do that real fast. It is a extremely tiny little Phillips head screw that sits right here. Is one of them. Sorry, you can't see that. I don't want to lose that. Then on the other side is that little one there. Okay. Now this front piece here should just pull right off. Nice and gentle. We're just going to give it a little bit of a cleanup here. If it takes me too long, I will jump cut. But there's just a little bit of nonsense sitting in there. So I just want to wipe that out. All right, so pulling that piece off here, not only does it allow you to get a pretty darn good look at all this stuff here where you can really dig in there and clean some stuff up, but it also allows you to check the condition of this pawl cap, which is that right there. We're going to take a little bit of a bigger flathead. I'm just going to bust that loose a little bit. Going to unscrew it. Underneath there should be a little bit of a washer, and it's stuck to the bottom of that. And then the actual pawl just starts to pull out there. You can take a tweezer and you can pull that out. Now that has a lot of junk on it, man. Lot of junk. And that's why we got to it. I'm gonna show you how much junk is on it. Are you ready? See that? They have these two little shoulders on here. You don't want any crap on them because you want that to catch your worm gear and distribute your line effectively. So, bit of a wipe off there. Q-tip and a toothpick work really well for that. Just clean that bad boy up. Pretty. All right. Now down in here, we're just going to give a little bit of a wipe out as well, just inside here. Take out any of the crap that might be in there. And I'm also just going to wipe around the outside here. Beautiful. See, there's a little bit of junk inside this worm gear compartment too that I just want to get rid of. I'm just going to take my toothpick here. And I'm just going to scoop out any crap I see. Now, if I wanted to go absolutely nuts, I could, you know, pull this little clip out here, pop that out of place, pull this up, and then I could actually get a look at the entire worm gear, but it doesn't seem that bad. There's just a little something here and there, but nothing too concerning, so I'm not going to go through the trouble of popping that out because it is kind of a pain in the butt. Those little C-clips and E-clips are kind of a real pain to get on and off, so if you don't have to take your worm gear off, don't bother. All right, so we're just going to put a tiny little bit of oil right in that little compartment there. And we're going to slide this pawl right back in. Make sure it sits flush. Then we're going to put our cap back on, and you want to be very careful with these caps. They're made of plastic. They will break on you if, let me wipe this off real fast. It's a little gross. If you over tighten them. So you're going to just hand screw that on to make sure the threads are lined up nice. Square it up, and then you can take your screwdriver and just like a quarter of a turn. That's it. All good. Now we're going to drop a little bit of oil right into this worm gear. Even going to put just a tiny little bit right on the front of that there, just to help. Any nonsense that you see, scoop out, slide this cap back on. It just fits right over, just like that. Then we can put those little baby screws back in. I'm not going to tighten them up all the way just yet. Just want to make sure that they both sit in there nice. Just make sure it sits in there nice and flush. Tighten that one up a little bit. Tight is tight. All right. All right, we're almost there, man. We're just gonna load this thing up with a little bit of grease here, and we'll call it a day. Gonna break out the old pen reel grease. Just gonna take a little bit on our brush. Now, you don't really need much here, but I always like to just put a little bit right in between these two gears. Just the tiniest. They're plastic, you know, so it's not 100% necessary. But I just like to throw a little something right in between them. Very light though, man. You don't want the reel feeling super chunky, you know. Then we can load up our pinion gear. You just want to hit these teeth right on top. Not too much though, because it shares it with your main. Just want a nice little clean coating on it. Okay. Can load up a little bit here on your yoke. It's actually a little old grease. I forgot to get off that right there. Just a nice little clean coating. And then actually where that sits on these posts here, I like to put a little something something on those, and then down on these ramps where these yokes fit. And that's how you tell, by the way, if this thing is upside down or not. They have ramps that fit, so it sits perfect all the way down. If it's upside down, so when this reel is easy because this metal part is facing up, but if it's upside down, those ramps aren't going to match up there and there. So that's how you know. Let's get our pinion gear back in. Scoop it up. Make sure it's centered in that yoke. And it just slides right over these posts here. Make sure it sits flush all the way down. All right, looking good. All right, so now I'm just going to take the tiniest little bit of coating here. Now you can put some oil on this whole contraption here. Personally, I just like to put a tiny little bit of grease right here where this is going to slide back and forth. A little bit right here on the spring. Just keep it, you know, slightly coated. Nothing crazy though. Now we can throw our little ratchet back in. It's going to be keyed probably. Just want to make sure that's all wiped off too. Throw that in like that. And now you can't just have it sitting like that. It's got to be keyed. And you got to get it to line up. And you might have to hold this. I'm just going to hold the worm gear. There you go. See how that sat completely flush? Then you got your greased drag washer. And then we're just going to grease up this main gear here. Just going to take a nice little scoop of grease. And we're just going to pat maybe 50–60% of it. You can just go big, sloppy taps with your brush. And I use the side of it. And then you just want to take your finger, swipe it along, and mash all that down into the gears. That way, you know, instead of painting it individually for an hour, you just kind of smack it on and mash it down in there. Just tiny little bit more on the other side. But you don't have to cover the whole thing because it will start sharing it with the pinion gear and it'll start spreading it throughout all those teeth as you reel it in. Just keep the top of it clean. It looks good. You don't want to overdo it, man, because you don't want it to have like a real heavy, chunky feel. You want it to just be smooth. Let's throw this thing back in. This is keyed as well. So we're just gonna get that to sit nice and flush down next to your pinion gear. For some reason, this little washer that slid in nice, and you can see how it's going to share that grease with that pinion gear. For some reason, this thing might have a little something in there where it doesn't like to get down in there. It's insane how tight that is, man. Jeez. There you go. I don't like that though at all. That should slip on way easier in my opinion, but whatever. Alright, so that's all lined up. Then we got our roller clutch inner tube, and it's got those two teeth on it. So you got to sit those in perfect. If it's just sitting like that, it ain't going to fly. You got to rotate it so those teeth fit flush right in there. Alright, we already put a little bit of something on these posts for these yoke springs to sit. Place that back on. Very nice. All right, let's just take a breath here Everything's greased, oiled. Both gears are greased nice. I think we can put our side plate back on. We got that bearing hooked up in there. Oops. That's how easy you can lose those springs. But yeah, everything's cool, man. I think we're good. Always take that second though, man. Always take that second. Oh, you know what? Real fast, we forgot the bearing in the front here. So let's just hook that up real fast. Totally forgot about that earlier. See that? You take that second and look around, and that's what happens. I don't think we hit this bearing earlier. Pretty smooth, a little dry. Oops. There we go. Almost pushed my one-way bearing out. Just want to make sure that's nice and flush in there. Get that case back on, make sure you hear that nice little snap. We're just going to keep some pressure on it. Now this longer screw goes up in the front here. I'm just putting pressure on this case. And I'm just going to start with this longer one. Tight is tight, and then I'm going to skip this middle one and go to this back one. Tight is tight. And then we'll throw that middle one right down the center there. Nice. Double check. Perfect. All right, looking good, baby. Takes a while, man, when you're trying to do a lot of cleanup work, you know? Look at all these Q-tips I have up here. It's insane. But we are almost done, man. So let's throw this handle back on. Make sure this bearing is nice and flush in there. Start out with this little washer that sat right on top of there. Very, very thin washer. Get that sat down into place. That protects that bearing. Then you got your little clicker set up here. Looks pretty clean. That down into place. Then you got your spring tension washers, which you want sitting back to back so they don't quite match up. Give you that nice spring. So the first one, it's kind of facing up. And they are keyed as well. See how they look perfect like that? You gotta just flip one. So backwards. Send those down. Then you got your, had this upside down. So washer first with the dark side facing up. Send that down. And then you got your, your nut, and you'll notice that there is a groove on the top side of it. And that is so your spring can fit in there nicely. I'm just gonna make sure there's nothing in there. And we can screw that bad boy on. And I believe screws on counterclockwise. I should probably put the spool in. so I get a little leverage here. So let's fire that bad boy back in and take the tiniest and just put a tiny little bit of grease right on that little E-clip there. Let's get the spool in. Set that into place. And we can put our door back on. There you go. So we're just going to hand tighten that down, nothing crazy. And then we can throw the rest of our handle back on. We got our spring, sits perfect, right in those little grooves there. Then we got our star drag. I just want to line up that square inside. Just gently maneuver it around. I have to hold the spool until that sits perfect. Then you got this little washer here. Then you got your handle. I'm just keeping pressure. Set this handle down. And then I'm just gonna transfer the weight here and just kind of distribute it with my fingers, and then we're just going to throw this little cap on. And now these can be a pain in the butt to line up. Don't force it. Make sure it goes on nice and smooth, counterclockwise. If it gives you any problems, just back off. You don't want to strip threads. Back to our 10mm. Just give it a little crank to the left, counterclockwise. Check it out a little bit. Drag works very, very well. Button works. Working all that fresh oil and grease. Nice. And sounds better already. Just going to take a couple minutes just to spread all that fresh oil and grease around. You'll feel it bust loose like 20-30 seconds later. There you go. I got this spool super loose. There you go. Dang. This thing feels pretty sick, man. All right, everything's working. We're just going to finish up tightening this right here. I'm going to try to line up one of these points of the nut with this hole here, and that's usually the ticket to get these lined up, where you just throw your red little cover on and rotate it till it is centered. A little too much. That's money right there. All right. Throw our last little screw in place here. I cannot drop it. God, structure's still going for it. Oh, baby. Tight is tight. Woo, boy. There you go, man. Wow, this thing feels pretty sick already. Everything's working really well. One last little final touch. Just want to put a little bit of oil right where the knobs meet the handles. And just kind of use gravity to spin those bad boys in a little bit. Might go shooting all over the place, but take a little time to get those running smooth. Very nice. All right, dude. Well, that wraps it up on this thing, man. The Daiwa Tatula SVTW. Very, very sweet. I'm gonna be launching some oil all over the place, messing with this thing for a little bit, but probably take it over to the couch, working all that fresh oil and grease, but everything's working really nice. Drag's working, spool tension's working, worm gear's cranking really nicely back and forth. Got some good oil in there now. Everything's much, much cleaner than it was. Button works. I'm stoked to use this thing. Feels really, really good, and it's just gonna get smoother and smoother and smoother as all that fresh oil and grease makes its way inside. So, pretty sweet, man. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to drop a like, and if you're into this sort of thing, don't forget to hit subscribe. We put a new video out every week. And definitely check out the rest of the channel. I got a lot of fishing content up, a lot of reel maintenance videos where I'm always tearing apart my whole big reel collection and tuning them up, so odds are you might find a few more videos on the channel that you may like as well. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time. Later. Pretty awesome, dude. This thing feels really, really nice. Really, really smooth. I can't wait to try it. Stoked. Stoked up. Very cool reel. If you want to see more videos just like this one, be sure to check out the rest of the Where We Wild YouTube channel, where we post a brand new video every week. And don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell icon so you get notified whenever we post a new adventure. Thanks for watching. See ya.